understand that Slavoj Zizek is slowly becoming known in Hong Kong, but is not that well known at the moment. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well perhaps I should say a tiny bit about him just before I go into my paper proper, which is something of a critique of Zizek, or not so much a critique of Zizek, but also the way that he's being taken up and used within sort of Anglo-American, the Anglo-American Academy. Slavoj Zizek is a Slovenian. Slovenia, as you may or may not know, was formerly one of the 6 republics of Yugoslavia. It's the northernmost and most affluent of the 6 republics, and it was the first of the republics to break away, precipitating, in some sense, the disintegration of the former Yugoslavia into separate nation-states. For a long time, Zizek was part of the opposition movement, the democratic movement within Slovenia. And he's very good at, we know a lot about Zizek's past, because he's very good at giving interviews and talking about himself. And the former Yugoslavia was a very strange place, in the sense that the official sort of ideology, the ideology of the party, the ideology of the state and the army, was actually Heideggerianism. Okay, so if you were an official philosopher, you were a Heideggerian. The official opposition, if you like, what became known as the Praxis group, which was very important to the development of Western Marxism, was Frankfurt School. Theodor Adorno, Herbert Marcuse, and Horkheimer, the Frankfurt School from West Germany. So you had Heideggerians on the one hand, you had the Frankfurt School on the other. And out of this, in the late 60s and early 70s, a new social movement started to arise, new dissident groups started to arise. Slavoj Zizek was connected with these, and the grouping around Slavoj Zizek moved not to West Germany, not to Heidegger, but to Paris. They started to read the structural Marxist Louis Althusser, and also the Psychoanalysis of Lacan. At the same time, Zizek, as a philosopher, is trained in German idealism. So what developed is what is known as the Slovene school of Lacanianism, of which Slavoj Zizek is the most prominent member. And eventually, with the disintegration of the former Yugoslavia, this became the dominant group, or the dominant grouping there. Zizek really emerged on the international scene in 1989 when he published his first book, The Sublime Object of Ideology, and I'll talk about this a bit later. It's an extraordinary book. If anyone is in, I believe it's being translated, is that right? Has The Sublime Object been translated now into Cantonese? It's certainly available here, I think. If you're interested in Zizek, The Sublime Object is as good a place to start as any, because a lot of the ideas that he developed in his later books, and Zizek writes something like 2 books in English a year. All right? He's extraordinarily prolific, frighteningly prolific. He never sleeps. If anyone's ever met Zizek, this guy just, he's a writing machine. He churns out huge numbers of books. So consequently, there's an awful lot of repetition in what he says. But he keeps reworking the same themes, the same concepts over and over again, and developing them. And most of them you can find in the Sublime Object. Okay, so I think The Sublime Object is one of his best books. It's not his most accessible. He's difficult. He is a difficult writer. Also, I think, he's now something of an international academic star. All right? When Zizek talks, he talks all over the world, he travels constantly. When he talks, he's talking to audiences, thousands of people. I mean, there's 2,000 people to turn up. It's like the final lectures of Lacan, where 2,000 people will be in the audience. He travels a lot to the States, he travels a lot to Latin America, and thousands of people turn up to hear him give lectures, which probably most of them don't understand. Right? But he's an incredible. There's now at least one, probably I think 2 documentaries made about him. And if you get a chance to see, one of them is simply called Zizek. And if you get a chance to see them, you'll get some of the sense of his persona. He's an incredible speaker. He's very flamboyant. He talks very, very quickly. He tells jokes continuously. All right. Usually dirty jokes. Usually scatological jokes. I mean, his sort of trademark is, you know, he will open. He will open, you know, his seminar by telling scatological jokes, toilet jokes. All right. So he's very entertaining to listen to, and at the same time, he's talking about very difficult philosophical, political, theoretical concepts. So this is, you know, very, very briefly, this is who Slavoj Zizek is. All right, and this is who I'm going to talk about today, where I'm going to talk about some aspects of his work. It's difficult, I think, to underestimate the extraordinary success of Slavoj Zizek in the Western European and North American academic circles. And yet, it has never seemed self-evident to me as to why this should be so. Zizek's idiosyncratic hybrid of German idealism, Althusserian structural Marxism, and Lacanian psychoanalysis would not at first appear to be particularly congenial to an Anglo-American academic climate preoccupied with postmodernism and identity politics. A significant factor in the overwhelmingly positive reception of Zizek lies, to be sure, in his ability to tell a joke. More often than not, the same one in 3 different books. If you read Zizek's books, you'll often see that he tells the same jokes over and over again, but he'll change the punchline or he'll change the point. Okay, so he opens a book with the same joke, but he'll just but the point is this. It's entirely different from the joke before. And his one of his favorite sort of rhetorical gestures, his favorite phrases is precisely. This is precisely what I mean. This is precisely Lacan's point. This is precisely what so-and-so said. And as you listen to this, and as you think about it, you think, actually, there's nothing very precise about this at all. I just don't understand what he's talking about. You know, or you know these little Kinder eggs, which have a toy in the middle. The children's, I saw him give a talk in Athens recently, and he opened this by talking about the child's Kinder egg, and how you opened up the egg and you found something in the middle, and this was the point. The thing in the middle, not the chocolate that you were going to eat. And he used this to illustrate, you know, the Lacanian 3 orders, the imaginary, symbolic, and the real. And this was really very funny and very good. I can't do it. I'm not going to try and repeat gestures. But I sort of listened to this, and I thought at the end of it, but it just doesn't relate. It doesn't make the point at all. It's a great joke, and it's very funny, but it actually does not relate to the notion of the Lacanian real and what is the relationship between the real and the symbolic. So he tells the same jokes over and over again, and he's better at telling jokes than most other academics I've ever come across. I think significantly, though, the 2 early books that did more than anything else to popularize his work, one was called Looking Awry, an introduction to Jacques Lacan through popular